Hi, good evening. My name is Dennis Petrolak. I'm the superintendent of the Chester School District, and I'd like to welcome you to our third public information session for the school district reopening plans. Joining us in this meeting tonight are the principal from Chester Academy, John Flanagan, our director of pupil personnel services, Rachel Loftus, and joining us in a little while will be the principal from Chester Elementary School, Kathy O'Hara. Tonight's meeting is the third of three public information sessions. Our first session was held last Wednesday evening at our board meeting. And at that particular meeting, we did an overview of our reopening plans, and we accepted live questions from a number of people who were in attendance that evening. On Monday evening, we presented public information session number 2. And at that meeting, we went over the first half of the plans, which include sections dealing with health and safety, social emotional well-being, facilities, emergency protocols, our school meal program, and transportation. And we also went over a number of questions that were submitted previously that address those different areas. Tonight's session is to go over the second half of the reopening plans, and that will include those sections pertaining to teaching and learning, special education, foreign language or world languages and ENL, technology, attendance, athletics, after school and before school childcare, and the final sections of the plan. And once again, at the end of this presentation, we will be answering questions that have been submitted previously through the district FAQ page. In addition to these three public sessions, last night we also conducted a closed meeting for our faculty and staff members. Altogether, approximately 110 faculty and staff members participated in that online meeting that featured an overview of the plans. And we also responded to approximately 116 questions that had been previously submitted. Our school reopening plans are the product of a cross-section of different stakeholder representatives from our school community. Those include board members, district administrators, building administrators, teachers, students, nurses, our school psychologists, and representatives of the various collective bargaining units in the district. In addition, we also had the administrator for the Orange Ulster BOCES special education program that shares a building with us. So these are the people that participated as sitting members of the reopening committee. And in addition to these representatives, there were a number of other people who participated in developing the plans as members of subcommittees that worked on particular areas of the reopening plans. And they were selected to participate because of specialized knowledge or experience that they had in those various areas. So we'd like to thank all of the members of our reopening committee and subcommittees that participated in these very comprehensive plans. The timeline for these reopening plans is as follows. You will recall that back in March, schools were closed across New York State. And at that time, the future of how long the school closure would go on was very uncertain. But as time progressed, it became clear that schools would not reopen in the spring. And our focus started to move towards the reopening plans for the upcoming fall, which is now upon us. So back in May 15th, the district convened a reopening committee, and we began to brainstorm different issues that we anticipated and different things that we knew we would have to plan for. At the same time, similar planning was going on in the state level, while the state was developing guidance materials and requirements that they would pass on to school districts to guide the districts in their plans. So on July 16th, New York State released their guidance for school districts. At that same time, New York State Department of Health also released guidance materials. Between the two guidance documents that we received, almost 200 pages of requirements and recommendations. Our district administrators worked very vigorously to take those requirements and to put them into the plans that are specific to our district and our needs that now comprise our reopening plans. Those plans were required to be posted, and we did post them on July 31st. And at that time, the plans were also submitted to the New York State Education Department. Subsequent to that time, on August 7th, we received supplementary or additional guidance from the New York State Department of Health, and we are working through those additional requirements, one of which is to conduct a series of public information meetings, such as we're doing this evening. Last week, on August 14th, our principals shared with their parents and guardians detailed plans for the instructional models that will be available to students in Chester Elementary School and Chester Academy. And presently, we are in the midst of conducting a parent-guardian survey to determine which parents will be selecting in-person or remote learning, to help us understand which parents will be requiring transportation for their children or childcare. Throughout this process, there will be revisions to the plan, and those revisions will be necessitated by changes in guidance that may come from the state, either Education Department or Department of Health, and also from feedback that we're getting from our faculty and staff and members of the community. And finally, on September 8th, we are scheduled for our first day of school. Some important considerations as we start to get into the plans. First and foremost, the health and safety of our students, staff, and families is our top priority. This plan was developed to ensure the safety of everyone who comes to our schools on a daily basis to learn or to work. This plan is based on the guidance that is provided by the State Education Department and also the New York State and also Orange County Departments of Health. And many of these are requirements or mandates. And in addition, there are recommendations and guidelines. So all of these are the guideposts for our plan. And lastly, and this is a very important point, there is a lot of concern about the possibility of a second wave of coronavirus or a resurgence of seasonal flu that may occur in the fall. So schools have been cautioned to be prepared to move in between in-person and remote learning should the need arise in a short period of time. An important note about our school calendar. A few moments earlier, I mentioned that the first day of school will be September 8th. Originally, our first day was scheduled to be September 2nd, and that was in a school calendar that was developed pre-coronavirus back in early February. So the first day of scheduled instruction is September 8th. In the teaching and learning section of our reopening plans, we detail and describe 3 different types of learning models or learning approaches. The first is an in-person learning model, which we refer to as a traditional model, or a pre-coronavirus model. This is the traditional schedule that you would have, or your children would have experienced last year and years prior to that. The next model that we discuss is a remote learning model, and you will hear more about that model from our principals. And the third model is something referred to as a hybrid in-person learning model. And a hybrid in-person is really a combination of in-person learning and remote learning. And once again, everyone is reminded that health and safety conditions may require shifts between these models at any point in time. An important part of our instructional program this fall is that we are providing parents and guardians some choice in the instructional model for their children. Parents and guardians are being asked at this time to choose between the in-person hybrid learning model and the remote learning model. And the way that they are being asked to do that is through a survey that has been distributed to parents and guardians. We are asking that parents and guardians commit to at least 5 weeks in the learning model that they select. And we are advising that principal approval and advance notice will be required to change learning models. It's important for parents to understand that once a decision is made about the learning model, that the school has a lot of planning that's based on your decisions for that learning model. That includes things like getting the appropriate number of desks to classrooms, the appropriate amounts of school supplies for all the students, setting up our bus routing to accommodate students that require busing, setting up school meals, et cetera. So it is something that requires advance notice for the district to plan accordingly. So parents are asked to please keep that in mind, and please respect the commitment to 5 weeks. And if there is a need for a change, contact your principal to discuss it. So at this point, I would ask our Chester Academy principal, Mr. Flanagan, to describe the in-person hybrid schedule that we have planned for Chester Academy.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Petrolak. So we're excited to try something new, and most importantly, excited to get students back in our building. At Chester Academy, we're uniquely a school that houses 3 different levels of education. We have 6th grade, which is still considered elementary, middle school, and high school. Our 6th grade students will follow a similar schedule to our elementary, where they do come 5 days a week. Our 7th through 12th grade students will attend school 2 days a week. Some people have called and asked me how come 7th graders wouldn't be coming more often, and basically we have maximized all our space in the building and started bringing our younger classes back. So our 7th through 12th grade will have here 2 days a week, and that will run on an AA schedule or a BB schedule. And what that means is that Mondays will be a remote learning day for all. Tuesday and Wednesday will be an A day. Thursday and Friday will be a B day. Our school day will start at 7:30 a.m. and will conclude at 12:15 p.m. And we will have reduced class sizes in cohorts that house our 6th graders. They'll be in our largest rooms in the building, rooms like our gymnasium, our cafeteria, our band room, our art room, which are very large rooms. And there'll be up to 15 students in those cohorts. And every student will be socially distanced by at least 6 feet, and face masks will be required. At the academy, we will be using our traditional classrooms and reducing our class sizes down to a maximum of 11 students in each classroom, 7 through 12, with social distancing of 6 feet and face masks being required. CTEC is available for our 11th and 12th grade students, and they'll be working on a schedule where they will be attending CTEC when they are attending Chester Academy and scheduled to be at CTEC. So they will be guaranteed to be going to CTEC at least 1 day per week. Our in-person hybrid model is a combination of in-person and remote learning. So students will be working with their teacher while they're here, but they're still responsible to check in and work remotely while they are not here, because instruction will be fluid throughout the week. So it's going to be an adjustment, and students will truly, benefit from a model that's used in a lot of colleges in preparation. We have to get through our curriculums and make sure our students are prepared. So we're ready to do that. Students in Chester Academy will receive instruction on a daily basis that they do attend in math, science, social studies, and English when they are here. And as we're in 6th grade and we move up, our students become more independent. So when we get to grades such as 11 and 12, some of that instruction becomes a little bit more independent. We'll have more information on that. In addition, our 7th through 12th grade students will work remotely on those alternative days. So as we explained earlier, our 7th through 12 may be here on an A day, but on a B day, they're working from home. Our platform for working online will continue to be Google Classroom, and we will have daily assignments posted. And so when students are here in the academy, attendance will be taken. When they're working remotely, whether that be through the hybrid or if they've chosen a full remote model, they will need to check into Google Classroom daily to do a check-in question, and teachers will utilize that to mark students as present or absent. Schoolwork will be the equivalent of 180 minutes per week. That's what New York State requires per class in order for students to get credit. And the way teachers determine that is the time they've met with them, plus the assignments they've given. So the synchronous and the asynchronous instruction, so to say. If they've given an assignment that they determine is going to take students 40 minutes to do, that would count towards 40 minutes of that 180 minutes per week. And during the remote learning model specifically, each teacher will have, if we are on remote learning as a building, each teacher will be assigned specific times for Google Meets for synchronous instruction. That'll look a little different on the hybrid. We certainly hope to bring more synchronous instruction, but there are going to be challenges as people are in person with students and working with remote students. And just so we're aware, synchronous is when all students receive instruction at the same time, and asynchronous is when students work independently on their own schedule. For additional information, please contact me. You could reach me by emailing me or giving me a call. I generally try and get back to people as soon as they get in touch with me, and we'll be providing more information in the coming weeks, in the next week or in 2 weeks, as we finalize our hybrid schedule and our cohorts.
Thank you, Mr. Flanagan.
Thank you.
At Chester Elementary School, our students in grades K through 5 will be in attendance at school for 5 days a week, and this is the in-person model. Their school day will start at 8:30 in the morning, which is when buses will unload. And then the day will go until 1 p.m., at which point the buses will load for dismissal. All of the classes at Chester Elementary School will have reduced class sizes. And just as we're doing in all of our levels, there will be social distancing, mandated social distancing, and mandated face masks. Childcare will also be available for students and families that require it, either before school or after school. And childcare is provided by the Middletown YMCA, which is independent of the school district, but works and has worked very closely with the district for some time. At Chester Elementary School, all of our classes have been split into 2 cohorts. So just as we do every year in the springtime, elementary school teachers will meet and they will discuss student placements for the upcoming school year. So this past spring, our teachers met with our principal, Mrs. O'Hara, and we assigned students to their teachers and classes for the upcoming year. With our hybrid opening, what we've done is we've taken each one of those classes and split them into 2 separate cohorts. So some of the students will be referred to as blue, or members of the orange groups or cohorts. Students will follow a 2-day alternating schedule. And on one day, they would be in a model that we call a classroom teacher day. And they would remain with their teacher for the entire school day from 8:30 until 1 p.m. Their teacher would stay with them during that time, with the exception of a half-hour lunch break. And then on the following day, that same group of students, instead of seeing their classroom teacher, they would see their various specials teachers, and would also receive some dedicated time to academic support in the areas of reading and mathematics and science and social studies. So on that specials and academic support, students would be getting physical education, art, music, plus academic support in those areas that I just mentioned. The remote learning model at Chester Elementary is very similar to what parents experienced back in the spring. Remote assignments will be provided by the various classroom teachers. So students received their classroom teacher assignments some time ago, and those teachers will be the primary contacts for the students moving forward, whether they're in an in-person hybrid model or in a remote model. That will be their primary teacher. All of our teachers will have regular check-ins with students, whether they're in remote or in person. And whenever possible, we will be utilizing synchronous remote instruction. And I noticed that Mrs. O'Hara, our elementary school principal, just joined us. Mrs. O'Hara is conducting kindergarten screening today. So I'm sure that she took some extra time to spend some time with some parents that I'm sure had a lot of questions. And thank you for joining us, Ms. O'Hara. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to this screen before we move on?
I just joined in on the tail end of the remote learning, so thank you for sharing that. Did we go over the in-person model?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. So if I won't share my screen in regards to the schedule, but I do encourage parents to review the schedule that was shared that gives an overview of both models, inclusive of the Schedule 1, Schedule 2, and what that might look like for the orange and blue group. And if there is any questions whatsoever, I just encourage you to contact me directly. I'm at extension 2203, or you can certainly, email me as well.
Thank you. So moving on, Ms. Loftus is going to talk briefly about our special education services in our district.
Thank you, Mr. Petrolak. FAPE, which is a free appropriate public education, will be provided to all students, and that is including special education students in our district. That will be insured to all students. The district will also be following IEPs, and this means that accommodations, modifications, supplementary aids and services, assistive technology, and any other unique aspects of IEPs will be met. If there are any needs for changes due to the COVID environment, parents will be contacted. And we also encourage you, if you have any questions about an IEP and its implementation, please reach out to us because we're very happy to speak to you. That's what the IEP is all about, providing individualized services. Special education students will be participating in both the in-person hybrid or the remote option, just like their general education peers. At the elementary level, grades 1 through 6, that's 5 days a week. If it's the in-person hybrid, and 7 through 12, that is the 2-day-a-week in-person hybrid rotation. And there is one exception to that. That is our 811 life skills classroom. Those students have the greatest need of any of the students in our district, and therefore we will be bringing them in 5 days a week. If there are any questions about special education, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can call the special education office or email me directly at my email address, rachel.loftus@chesterufsd.org.
Thank you, Ms. Loftus.
Thank you.
Some other areas that are touched on in our plan are world languages and ENL, or English as New Language. So foreign language instruction will be provided in Spanish and French for students in grades 7 to 12. And for those students that are eligible for ENL services, those services will be provided in whichever platform parents or guardians select. Technology is our next section. As many of you know, back in 2012, our district became one of the first in the area to provide one-to-one Chromebooks. And since 2015, all students in grades 8 to 12 have received take-home Chromebooks. So when the coronavirus pandemic hit back in March, our district was able to quickly pivot and provide Chromebooks to all of our students in the district, anyone that requested one. And our teachers had a great deal of familiarity and experience in working with Chromebooks, so we were really at an advantage. Back in the spring, we conducted a survey to determine the level of internet access that families have, and we were very pleased to see that an overwhelming majority of our students and staff do have this access. So it is important in an environment where remote learning is taking place in hybrid learning to ensure that people have access. So we will continue to assess this level of access that people have and what their needs are regarding technology. Our district has provided a very robust help desk or technical support system for our students and staff that are experiencing difficulties with their Chromebooks or other technologies. And we will continue this very critical service, and they really are extremely helpful and accessible and flexible, even providing roadside service and curbside pickups, even as late as today. However, in the event that families do not have access to internet, the district will be providing assistance in connecting them or providing them with internet service. Also, the district will be providing families and parents with information on how to use our Chromebooks and other technologies that have become vital to instruction in a remote environment. Another section in our reopening plans addressed attendance reporting and absenteeism. So there will be daily attendance reporting for all programs. That is detailed in the program, in the plan. We do have a district attendance policy, and there are specific provisions for grades 6 to 12 that penalize students who are excessively absent. In the climate of the pandemic, that requirement is being relaxed. But we will be taking daily attendance, reviewing daily reports, and when we notice a pattern of absenteeism, we will be referring those students and families to our school counselors, who will follow up to see if they can assist in improving attendance and making referrals to either school resources or resources in the community. The next section in the plan addresses athletics and extracurricular activities. We acknowledge how important extracurricular activities, including athletics, are to the overall development of students. And we also understand how important it is to the level of motivation for coming to school and participating. So we are working as hard as we can to get these programs up and running as quickly and as safely as we can. But we have restrictions. We do follow the New York State Department of Health guidance. We also follow the New York State Public High School Athletic Association requirements and regulations for athletics. And under the current restrictions, unfortunately, the start date for fall athletics is delayed until September 21st. Also, for the beginning of the school year, all extracurricular activities or clubs will not be meeting when we first start, so that we can start the school year and get a better understanding of what our needs will be. And then we will start those extracurricular activities, but they will be in a modified format, which may include very limited or no use of district facilities. But we understand how important this participation is, and we will be flexible and creative. As I said earlier, we work with the Middletown YMCA to assist families in accessing before and after school childcare. So that will again be the case this year. Because we are using the gymnasium for some teaching spaces, it is possible that we may need to use the Maple Ave school gymnasium for the program this year. We are asking that parents inform us if they intend to use childcare on the survey that is currently out with parents and guardians. Excuse me. In our reopening plans, we are required to report that our annual professional performance reviews for teachers and principals will continue to be in place. We are required to certify that all of our teachers hold the appropriate certification for the areas in which they're assigned. And we are also required to ensure that any student teachers will follow all of the protocols that we have put in place. And also that student teachers will work only under a full-time certified teacher. And the last part of the plans contain references to a number of the resources that we used in putting the plans together. And then there's also a very helpful one-page bulleted list of things that parents and guardians can do to assist in a safe school reopening. So once again, reviewing the timeline, we're currently in the process of conducting our parent survey. We know that some parents wanted to wait until they viewed this presentation before they gave their responses to the survey. So if you have not yet responded, we ask that you respond to the survey by Thursday evening. And that's very important to us in our planning, as you will hear as we go through some of the Q&A at the end of this presentation. So at this point, we are going to move into a Q&A session. I'll ask the administrators to assist in delivering the questions to me. These are questions that have been submitted to the district by different parents and guardians, community members, or faculty and staff. And many of these questions are currently on our FAQ site on our website. And those that are not already up on the FAQ site will be up in the next few days. So we do encourage you to take a look at those questions in print form. Excuse me. So these are select FAQs, and these are selected because they relate specifically to the areas of teaching, learning, and miscellaneous. Okay, so Mr. Flanagan, are you up first?
Sure, I'll go.
Okay.
Ms. Loftus and Ms. O'Hara. So most districts in Orange County, Mr. Petrolek, are not having students back in the school right away, if at all. Why did Chester decide to bring students back?
So our district and other districts in the state were tasked in developing reopening plans that would provide for the safe return of students to in-person learning with social distancing and the other requirements. Every district is different. Some larger districts are larger in size and number of students, but they may not have the amount of space that we have. Since we have adequate space for additional distancing in both of our buildings, we were able to accomplish social distancing and the other requirements and protections that are necessary to put into place. And we were able to put together a schedule that can safely bring students back. So since we were able to do what the state has asked school districts to do, and since it's in the best interest of students for them to be in a regular school program for a number of reasons, that is the reason we made this decision at this time.
Okay, why did Chester decide to have the hybrid model school day with dismissal at 2:15 for the academy and 1 o'clock for the elementary school? Why not make it a full day? For parents that work, 12:15 is hard for some.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So New York State required districts to develop 3 types of instructional models: the in-person hybrid, a traditional model, and then also a remote model. Parents also requested that there be a choice, that they be allowed to select remote or hybrid if that was the alternative. So in order for our district to provide these different models that could run simultaneously, we need to provide our teachers with planning time so that they could develop lesson plans and interact with students. So the reason for our abbreviated school days and the full remote on Monday at the academy is so that teachers will have the adequate planning time that they will need. You're on mute.
What learning models will be available for students when school reopens?
Thank you. So as we said, there are the traditional approach, which is not available at this time. That's I refer to as a pre-coronavirus approach, and that is not available. But we are offering an in-person hybrid model. We're offering remote learning model. And as always, another option for parents is homeschooling. And I want to explain and differentiate that homeschooling is different than remote learning. In remote learning, the school and the school district are providing the instruction, and we are providing the instructional materials. In homeschooling, parents are required to file a plan meeting certain requirements with Ms. Loftus, our Director of People Personnel, and parents are responsible for providing the instruction, providing the instructional materials, providing standardized testing, grading, and a number of other requirements. So those are the different options that we have.
To clarify, parents are asked to stick with their choice, hybrid versus remote model, for 5 weeks, but then we are able to choose another option at that time?
So that's correct. We are asking that parents stay with their model for at least 5 weeks. And if a parent would like to change from one model to another, please contact your principal and have a discussion about that.
Will there be a letter sent out to choose which learning model you want, explaining the options, how to choose, and who to submit to for the fall start date?
Thank you. Last Friday, we sent out a survey, and that survey asked for those questions. And that survey, as I said, we would like to have all of our completed surveys back by tomorrow evening. And that includes the choice of learning model, transportation, food, and childcare.
The parent survey is to be submitted at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, August 19th. Yet the last parent informational meeting starts at 7 p.m. on that same day. The parent survey should be due the following day to give parents ample time to listen to all of the information presented at the meeting prior to making a decision that has to do with their child's educational safety.
Thank you. So it's important to understand that school districts were given a short time frame within which we were required to schedule these 3 public meetings and the faculty and staff meeting. And this is also a very critical planning time for districts as they prepare for reopening. So we started this survey so that it could conclude and provide us with information that is absolutely critical for September 8th. And there was simply not enough time for us to conduct the survey and get all the information sessions in at the same time. So we do understand that some parents wanted to wait until the conclusion of tonight's meeting. So certainly we are extending the period during which parents can respond. We're asking that parents respond by tomorrow evening.
Can I create my own option for sending my child back to school? Can I send them for their core instruction days in the classroom with their teachers and opt to have specials be done with remote learning from home? In a sense, only attend in person every other day.
So at this time, we're asking parents to select either the in-person hybrid or the fully remote model of instruction. We're not able to provide a combination or a custom combining of the two at this time.
I'm choosing the remote learning model for my child. Will I have an option to send her to school part-time, maybe on an in-person hybrid schedule, where she'll be partially at home and partially in school? If yes, what are the guidelines to be able to make this transition?
Once again, we are not able to customize different approaches because of limitations that we have in staffing and space. However, prior to the time that you wish to make that switch, please contact your building principal and you can discuss different concerns that you may have that are related to transition.
For in-person, hybrid, or remote learning, will instruction be synchronous or asynchronous?
So currently, we are offering both in-person and remote instruction. And all teachers are providing both synchronous and asynchronous instruction. As we've discussed on a number of occasions, we're in the process of conducting a survey right now, and that survey will inform us about the number of people that are choosing remote versus in-person. And if we find out that a larger proportion of parents are selecting remote instruction, then that will allow us to move more of our instructional resources towards remote learning and more synchronous learning. So the short answer is it's a combination, and that combination, that composition may change once we have the results of the survey.
Can a parent opt out their child from the in-class lunch period?
Once again, we are not able to customize the programs that we have in place. We do not have the space or the staffing to do that. The number of students that are selecting remote will once again drive our staffing and where the staffing will be. We are anticipating that the original number of students we expected to be in classrooms will be significantly less than full enrollment. And that will reduce the number of students in classrooms. And both the American Academy of Pediatrics and other health professionals and others have recognized and accepted the need for removing face masks in order for students to be able to eat in classrooms, which is what the recommendation is.
With regard to remote learning, will there be remote learning for first grade?
So remote learning will be available at all grade levels, K to 12.
What will remote learning look like? Will students have to sign in at a certain time of day and for a certain amount of hours? Will they see their teacher daily? If not, how often?
Mm-hmm. And once again, I will refer parents and guardians to their building principals. Remote learning is going to look very different at different grade levels. Older students are more capable with remote learning, are more independent, and younger students need more guidance with that. So please contact your building principals or refer to the materials that they forwarded to you last Friday that detail their plans for remote instruction and in-person instruction.
If the majority of parents opt for remote learning, will that mean all the students will be remote learning, or will the remaining students still be able to participate in the in-person hybrid learning even though the majority selected remote?
Mm-hmm. So at this time, there is no plan for the Chester School District to offer fully remote learning. However, depending on the conditions over the next several weeks and into the school year, it may become necessary at some point to shift to an all remote model. So this is something that we'll have to watch very closely.
How are students held accountable for work which is done remotely?
Attendance will be taken every day for students that are in person and also for those that are on remote instruction. And students on remote instruction will be held to the same expectations. We'll have the same curriculum and we'll have the same grading requirements as those that are in in-person learning.
Are the foreign language classes for the middle and high school students being taught remotely for the hybrid model?
And once again, I'll refer you back to our instructional plans. Grade 7 and 8 instruction will will be live 1 day a week and remotely the rest of the week. And however, at the high school level, Spanish and French instruction will be mostly remote.
Will the Academy student schedules this year reflect the hybrid model? If that is what, I'm sorry, I'll start over. Will the Academy student schedules this year reflect the hybrid method? If that is what the school does, or will it just look like a typical before COVID class schedule?
So students at the Academy will receive schedules that will look very similar to the before COVID or the pre-coronavirus schedule. And the reason why we're doing this is we are hopeful that at some point in the future, we will be able to return to our traditional schedule. So our modified schedules in the interim are based on that traditional schedule. Students will receive that traditional schedule, and but there will be modifications when students arrive to school.
How large are the classes in Chester Elementary School and Chester Academy?
Thank you. So, excuse me, at the elementary school, students, you'll recall, are on a 2-day alternating schedule. On the classroom teachers, the students remain with their classroom teacher and they get instruction in core subject areas. And those classes are scheduled to be approximately 12 students or less. And most likely they will be less because of the number of students that are on remote instruction. On the alternating days, the specials and academic support days, students will be in 3 academic support blocks, as we discussed earlier, and they'll get 3 specials classes as well. Those students will be socially distanced in a much larger learning space, and those classes may have 25 or less students. And once again, because of the number of students going into remote instruction, we do anticipate that that they will be less, and in some cases significantly less than that number. At Chester Academy, most classes will have approximately 12 students or less. And once again, I would remind everybody that depending on the number of students that choose remote learning, that will dictate what the final class sizes are in both buildings.
Homeschooling. If a student attends via homeschooling this year, can they return to take classes in school next year?
So the answer is yes. Students who are homeschooled have to be re-enrolled before they can re-enter school. So once again, the person to contact regarding homeschooling issues is Ms. Loftus, who's in this meeting tonight. Her information was presented earlier. And with regard to homeschooling versus remote, once again, I want to remind people, homeschooling, parents assume all responsibility for instruction at home and are required to file homeschool plans with the district. Remote learning is where the school is providing the instruction and the materials, and the students are working at home. And once again, with remote learning, we are asking for a 5-week commitment from parents and guardians.
What will teachers be doing to ensure students have a good introduction to their new teachers and classmates, whether it be on a hybrid schedule or a fully remote schedule?
As we said earlier, the social and emotional needs of our students is our primary concern. So all of our teachers will work very hard to ensure that whatever contacts, whatever connections they have are meaningful connections with their students, regardless of the model of instruction that they choose. So our teachers and school counselors will be available to meet with students and parents and work on developing healthy relationships, particularly in the beginning of the school year when everybody is a little anxious. And our staff will be available to provide extra support and extra help and encouragement as the year goes on.
If multiple siblings attend school, will they be on the same schedules?
So at the elementary school, since all in-person students attend every day, the answer is yes. At Chester Academy, the answer is mostly yes. We are attempting to keep siblings on the same schedule. However, high school schedules can be very complex and very specialized. So there may be instances where siblings may be attending school, siblings that are at the high school may be attending on different days because of the specialized programs that they're attending.
Will students be required to transport supplies to school daily? Will lockers or cubbies be used?
At the elementary school, each student is being provided with a bin for their school supplies. Rooms that have cubbies or other enclosed storage spaces will be using them under the supervision of teachers who are enforcing social distancing. At the academy, we will not be using lockers because lockers promote congregation and they run contrary to social distancing. But both buildings will, in the model that we have in place, the students are staying in the same room. So once the students bring their belongings to their classroom, they will have access to those belongings for the duration of the school day.
Will there be aides in every class this year to assist teachers?
As we said earlier, most of the classes are 12 students or smaller with a few exceptions. And in those larger classes, we do have additional personnel, whether they're additional teachers or class aides.
Will there be an organized procedure for dropping students off in the morning for those students that do not take the bus?
There will be specified times for bus drop-off and for parent drop-offs and also for pickups. All of the drop-offs will be staggered and we will identify specific entry points for people to use for arrival and dismissal. The principals, your building principals, will be in touch with parents and guardians to provide them with the specific details for each of the buildings.
Will the students have recess? Will the students be able to use playground equipment?
So at the elementary school, students will have a 15-minute recess and a 30-minute lunch on the classroom teacher days. On the alternating academic support and specials days, elementary school students will have a 30-minute lunch and a 30-minute physical education period. Students at the academy will not have a recess, but our sixth grade students will be assigned to learning spaces and classrooms that are located on the first floor of the building. And our teachers are encouraged to take students outside for mask breaks and for fresh air as needed. Regarding playground equipment, at this time, we do not have dedicated staff that is available to disinfect playground equipment in between use by different cohorts. So this is an area that is currently under review. We understand that the playground equipment it's difficult to have kids out on the playground and not let them use the equipment. So we're working very hard to find some accommodation so that we can provide access to the equipment for the children.
Will children be able to socialize at all?
Of course, children can socialize. They can socialize within the health and safety regulations that we have to have in place to ensure the safety for everybody. All of our students will be scheduled into small cohorts, and they'll be spending the entirety of their day in those small cohorts. But while they are in those cohorts, they will be permitted to socialize with each other, of course, while maintaining social distancing and wearing masks.
Will picture day still occur? If a child is remotely learning, can they still participate in having their picture taken?
Picture days are still scheduled at the elementary school and at the academy, and the building principals will be providing more information on picture day once the school year is underway.
How do you monitor the safety of others in the classrooms if people wear masks that are not deemed appropriate or safe? Shouldn't the school district provide masks for all?
So New York State Department of Health and New York State Education Department provided us with guidance and requirements regarding face coverings. And they specified that face coverings, acceptable face coverings, must cover the nose and mouth. And despite that, recently it's been brought to our attention that there are some very recent research findings that indicate that bandanas or neck gaiters that do not fully cover or closely cover the mouth and nose may not provide sufficient protection. So this is something that we are reviewing, and it is possible that there will be a modification and a possible prohibition of those types of face coverings. We do encourage all parents to provide comfortable face coverings for their children and encourage the use of those face masks, which is mandatory in our schools. And for those students or staff members that do not have a face mask, we will have an ample supply for people that need them.
I have previously borrowed a Chromebook from the school that was signed out to my child for my child's distant learning this past year, and was told to hold on to it. Do I need to hand it back in?
So if you are continuing to keep your child enrolled in the school district, you do not need to return the Chromebook. If you are planning to homeschool or leave the district in any way, you will be required to return the Chromebook.
Could the 6th grade supply list be revised and updated to reflect online learning?
We are actually in the process of revising the 6th grade supply list. And I'll just remind everyone that all of our students will be staying in the same location. So if there's a concern about the amount of supplies and moving from place to place, they will not have to move from place to place. But to directly answer the question, we are revising that list and we'll be getting that out to parents shortly.
Are students who participate in the in-person hybrid learning or fully remote learning eligible to participate in interscholastic athletics?
The answer is yes. Under the current pandemic, New York State has made adjustments to their eligibility requirements, and they have determined that any students that are participating in remote or a hybrid model of instruction and are enrolled are considered to be bona fide students and are eligible for interscholastic competition. And there are some other conditions, but all of our Chester students meet those conditions. And specifically, they require that students are registered for at least 3 classes, plus a physical education class, and our local requirements exceed that minimal requirement. So as long as students are enrolled and are participating, then they are eligible for interscholastic competition. And that concludes the questions that we have selected for this evening's presentation. There are additional questions that are on our FAQ page on our website. Also, there is a link on that FAQ page if there are additional questions that you would like to submit. If they're of a general nature, you can submit them to reopen@chesterufsd.org. Or if they are specific to one of the buildings, we encourage you to forward them to the appropriate school principal. We would like to thank you for your attention this evening, and I would like to thank our administrators for joining us for this presentation. And again, we are here to work with you and to help you make the best decision for your child regarding the instructional model and help to make sure that all of our students and staff feel comfortable returning to school. So if there's anything that we could do to assist with that, please do not hesitate to let us know. Thank you for joining us tonight. Good night.